Hello and welcome to Geek and Biscuits. We're your hosts, Grant and Dan. Hi, mate. How are you?
Good, mate. Good, very good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good actually. Yeah. It must be all these great films we're watching, apart from a
Absolutely.
certain Kevin Bacon one. Excuse me.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. No. So if I say Alien to you, apart from whoa, what else comes into your head? What is the
Alf.
first thing? Apart from
Alf.
Sting, of course. So if it wasn't Alf, what's the next thing that'd come into your head?
Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver, and probably the most original um, creation for quite a long time. I think Geiger's creation for the Alien is one of those incredibly iconic um, pieces of cinema. So yeah, Alien, that 1979 classic.
Well, masterpiece, I would say.
Absolutely phenomenal.
And,
Yeah,
and would you? I mean, we're not going to spoil all our secrets, but we don't just randomly come up to each other and say, "Oh, let's see this film." We do have some kind of we do have a process of making sure we don't cherry pick the films. We have a certain amount of films we want to talk about, of course,
yeah,
but they are to a degree randomly generated unless people have
yeah,
asked for certain content that gets bumped up, obviously, because people want to see that. But do you think that it's quite nice that it's followed on from Jaws? Because Jaws was 1975, then Aliens 1979. So do you think in some ways it's not a spiritual successor, but it is a successor in almost like the way that we spoke about last time, that our tension's built, how
yeah,
the crew feel real and alive, and that the like almost impending doom is felt, and it's not just a really big reveal for the creature, and then off we go flying into like generic sci-fi. Do you think in some ways it's almost like if I'd have said to you, "Oh, in an alternate history that Steven Spielberg's directed Alien," would you have felt, "Well, I can imagine the guy directing Jaws has made this film." Do you know what I mean? Some of
yeah,
the
definitely,
trademarks,
yeah,
some of the slow burn. Do
yeah,
you feel that maybe then it's maybe come at a perfect time for us to discuss this?
yeah, possibly, yeah, I do. I do believe that. I don't know, it was Walter Hill or David Giler who when they were getting money, the money side of things from Fox, did say, this is going to be Jaws in space. I believe
Yeah,
I've read that somewhere. You're absolutely spot on, mate. It's very much how we talked about Spielberg Tret Amity as a character itself, and you had all
the
those
town.
establishing
Yeah,
shots of the town and everything, and that's the same with the Nostromo. Is that you get the ship becomes a character because we open on. So obviously you get the really nice titles and some massive the Starfield and everything. Then you get your
yeah,
information about the Nostromo and it being a mining vessel,
yeah.
a massive mining vessel with its own refinery, um, and
Huge.
then
Yeah,
yeah, and then it's and then you're introduced to the ship through the corridors and um, the spaces. There's no characters for 3 minutes until we get to the cryo chambers.
yeah.
So to have that established straight away really gives it that extra depth, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Yeah, well, it's just so. I mean, obviously, 2 years prior, we've got Star Wars,
Yes.
and the opening after the opening crawl, we have the iconic shot of the underbelly of the Star Destroyer, if I'm right, and the Rebel ship. Um, so obviously, from that perspective, for me, from my limited years on this planet, or maybe not limited now, but from my years of experience, that's to me is when you kind of look at it and think that's when the game changed. That's
Yes.
obviously
Yeah.
when people thought, right, not just with effects, but like depth,
Mm,
being able to reach out your hand and feel like you can touch what's there, like that,
yeah.
feel that sensation of that looks real.
Yeah,
I can
definitely.
imagine myself being on that, and I think I think 'cause obviously I said last week we obviously rewatched the films. We've seen some of these films so many times, and I don't know if it's just me. Maybe it is just me, but with Alien, if I watch it with my wife, she does watch a lot of these films with me. She's never seen
Yeah,
Alien, and she was at first she was like, "Well, what's it about?" "Well, I like it," and I was like, "Well, no, you probably won't. 'Cause you have good taste in films." But is it just me, or do you ever sit and feel that, like, oh, I can't wait to watch Alien again? Because the film obviously lasts for a good hour and 40, 50 minutes, but, like, and I know the film's told very methodically, very slow, very tension
yeah,
building intentionally, and it works all the more for it. But do you ever sit there and think to yourself, like, well, I couldn't remember it all bit by bit. It's like it's that methodical. It's that there's so many scenes where characters just sat talking to each other or sat
yeah,
analysing what's going off. Like when they first go on to the where they find the space jockey and the
yeah,
John Hurt and
mm,
Lambert, I believe.
yeah.
I
Lambert and Bowler's,
forgot
yeah,
his name. Something Cartwright, into it?
yeah.
Is
Veronica
it?
Cartwright, yeah,
That's it, Veronica. Yeah, yeah. And obviously the captain.
yeah,
They all go on, and you've got Ash not about, but that works for those lingering shots of him because. As the audience knows, something's not quite right with Ash once you've seen
yeah,
it once before. But we get a lot of those, so they don't feel out of place. So you
yeah,
don't go, why are they lingering on that guy? But I suppose so much of the film is taken up because it is paced very methodically. But it's one of those films to me, like Jaws, where if I think back and don't watch it for a good 3 or 4 years, I never seem to remember everything about it until it's actually unfolding
yeah,
in front of my eyes again. And I think that always is a sign of a good film when it's almost, to me, it's like the iconic images stick with you so much. And it's not that anything else is not memorable. It's just the fact it's almost like there's more going off or more into that than
yeah,
what you see on the screen. So it's almost like the film's so rich that you remember the iconic
yeah,
scenes and everything else that you're trying to like think, oh, what about that little nice scene or that conversation and things like you just don't remember it. I mean, again, it might just be me. I just might be weird when I watch films,
yeah.
but I
No,
think
not at
that
all.
yeah, I do think the same with Jaws. Like I could have give you a brief synopsis through and summary of the film, but like with Star Wars, I could give you a detailed, very
Yeah,
detailed synopsis and stuff. But I think films like this, I think it just shows how grounded in reality they are to say like the subject matter,
yeah,
especially like not just Jaws but Alien. It's like it's could have so easily been such a cheap B movie,
yeah,
but like the premise of it, like an aliens aboard the spaceship. I mean, we were saying, weren't we, from in our review of the thing that obviously the John Carpenter's version is still yet to happen. It's still 3 years
yeah,
away. But the thing was already out, and that's people regard that as like now what if that was to be remade like a B movie, and we've had a lot of sci-fi B movies, so why couldn't this have at the time fell into the category of like
yeah,
remake of a B movie? Do you know what I mean? It had that it had those qualities that in the wrong hands it could have been that, and I think it's just a
yeah. Absolutely.
testament
Yeah,
to Ridley Scott and his team how detailed it is, and that part of that does go to me where and that is why that I fail to remember a lot of the little details in the film because they've just done such a good job building every little detail, every aspect. Like you said, the set of the film, the spaceship, it is a character on itself. And
yeah,
every bit of it's interesting, and we don't barely scratch the surface, do we, of anything to do with those guys, and everything's into that. We know not really a lot about the company, and everything's built from you being in the shoes with them. Like if me or you were to go working with them, we wouldn't suddenly know everything about everything, and there's not
yeah,
many exposition dumps on people. Everything kind of flows naturally.
yeah, yeah,
Like you don't see the is it Parker and Brett,
yeah, yeah,
the two, yeah, they're not, when you see the crew, you believe them. Like from my point of view, and we'll go into the cast now, so I'm not babbling forever. But the point going into this is that the cast, when they all come out, you don't automatically think right, main guy, main character.
Oh no,
We don't
no.
seem to have a protagonist, do we? Straight away, we seem to have the crew as itself, and the ship is the protagonist. It's almost like a team effort. And then the only question is, obviously, you've got Tom Skerritt's the captain. So you maybe think, well, he's the captain, so maybe because he's the leader, he's going to be the main protagonist throughout the film. And obviously, that at some point, maybe halfway through the film, changes. But I think it's just those attention to details. You get these characters, like you said, come out the pods, and Brett and Parker are just talking about money. Every conversation is, again, happens because it should happen. It's what these characters would do. Yeah, it's not because, well, let me explain it. 644 days ago we were, the exposition that's told is at the right time and in a fashion that I would expect someone to explain that to me. When they sit and they say, "Why have we been awoken?" Well, because characters have been awoken. That's when exposition should be dumped.
Yeah.
Or not. It's not even dumped. That's when it should come about. And I think maybe it's just a failure of sci-fi films or modern filmmaking, but it's almost like spectacle, because we want to get bums on seats. Let's dump a little bit of exposition, spectacle. Whereas this is just a film done right. And before I will let you get a word in. Sorry, I was just saying that watching it with my wife, I could tell at the first maybe 20 minutes she was not bored, but I could tell that she was like starting in her mind. I could see the cogs going. Wise, let's get going. Let something happen. Let's do it. And in my mind, I'm like, brilliant. Everything's set. Look how good is that spaceship. Look, I can't wait to see this. And what kind of planet is this on? And I think that's again, it's just it's just he knew exactly what to do, didn't he, Ridley? He knew exactly how long to stretch out the parts where nobody's speaking to each other. He knew how to stretch out the parts where we're looking at this. It's a space jockey. We know nothing really about it until Prometheus in 2012. So he's just very clever in how long to linger on a shot, how to build tension, because we never really go away from them, do we? We never really get a scene where we feel comfortable in any part. We're always like either interested and fascinated in what's going off. So that's probably me, just a long way of telling you that it's just everything seems so authentic. I think is probably the phrase, and we have built into the character, so we have stepped forward a little bit. Everything that I've praised Ridley for, I'm not doing myself, but it's.
Well, this is it. I think Star Wars hit. Dan O'Bannon had done Dark Star with John Carpenter, which was a comedy, and then he went away and wanted to do Dark Star as a horror film. So he written Star Beast, which he was he partnered with, was it Ronald Shusett? And they wrote, and that's what became Alien. But because of Star Wars, Fox were like eager to buy up any, well, most studios were eager to buy up any sci-fi scripts, and Alien was the only thing that was sat on the desk, so they quickly put it into, they greenlit it pretty much straight away, and it was they got Ridley Scott off the Duelist, and before the Duelist he'd only done adverts, he'd only done advertising, so it was only his second feature, but he had a really good team behind him. He had Mobius, the French artist, doing all the work for the human side of things, and then of course H.R. Geiger, who his work's phenomenal by itself. It's so grotesque but beautiful at the same time.
Have you seen the just to intercut there, talking about Geiger's influence in Alien? This for the new Xbox console that's being launched this winter. There's a new, off the top of my head, I do apologise, I think it begins with C. It is a horror game, and it's inspired by the works of H.R. Geiger, and it's like on that kind of planet. It's not Alien, but it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And so we'll probably I'll have to send you that. It's just looks so it's Species and Alien and stuff. It's just all based completely on his works. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'll check that one out. Yeah, that'd be great. But it's such a good team behind him. Just the model workers and SFX guys, and obviously it's a very artistic film, and Ridley Scott is very artistic. So to have him, and I think he went to art school, he was a graphic designer, I think, before he became a director. So to have him working with two other well-established designers, just gelled incredibly well. And you're right, he knew, just these long lingering shots work so well. It's, again, people go back and they say it's a haunted house movie in space. You said it in your description for the last time, and you're right, it is set up just like that. But I think Walter Hill and David Guiley sort of rewrote quite a lot of Dan O'Bannon's script. Dan O'Bannon had to be credited for the Writers' Union. Writers' credit, but I think that the script was more Guiler and Hill who put in a lot of the sort of the character stuff, and a lot of the sort of finer details and that. But they, for the script, they kept the characters they said unisex. So they never went in and sort of said, Dallas is a male, Ripley's a female, Nash is a male, blah 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 blah. They were just like, no, cast how you want. So can you imagine having that freedom as well on a studio picture like that, to sort of just say, well, no, we're doing a slightly artsy monster movie, but have a freedom to cast whoever you want. And what a cast, what a group! Harry Dean Stanton, who's a well-established actor at this point. Yaphet Kotto has been a well-established actor. We'd not seen much of Sigourney Weaver. I don't know whether it's the first major role. I don't know if she's been in anything. Rebecca Cartwright had done a few things. Ian Holm, famous for being a stage actor anyway at that point. John Hurt, again, been famous for TV and film and theatre, and so Tom Skerritt as well. So it's a phenomenal cast. So when you're working with something, they all wake up, like you said, it's banter straight away. Everything's lived in, which is what they drew from Star Wars. Star Wars works so well because we'd never seen grubby sci-fi before. Everything was always pristine, silver, straight lines. You think 2001 when you think of pretty sci-fi,
absolutely.
And then the fact that they went, the set design, they went and sort of did the whole, the computer monitors that they used, switch on at the start, they were older monitors than what, computers hadn't been around that long, but they still used slightly outdated monitors for the time. So it looked like the ship was kit bashed together. So it was more believable. I love stuff like that. I love that much thought and detail went into. There's only, the sets are only, there's the derelict spaceship, the planet itself, and then the rest of it's in the Nostromo. So you have to really build into that believability.
Of course you do.
And if you can have a labyrinth of corridors and hallways and even like the engine room where they keep these giant vehicles, it's only like from a couple of times in I watched it where when is it Brett, when he's looking for Jonesy, he lets him go and look at this giant metal doors. You got all the dangling chains, but there's some big mining vehicles in there that you only sort of get a glimpse of.
Huge,
The fact that they're there, like they put that detail in. They could have just not done it in that part of the ship. They could have gone in any part of the ship to do that scene. But the fact that they went to the trouble of building these giant things, just to say this world to you is real.
I think lived in, what you just said is perfect to describe it. I think wherever you go on that ship, if you take several screen caps or pause the film in several places in specific areas, like you said, I think you will see a lot of work that's gone into the sets, just things that by all accounts we might take a few viewings to even notice them. And I think again that shows somebody that really cared about what they were telling, like you said, really cared about the things that we may not even question ourselves, that maybe only diehard fans will maybe go, well, okay, what's that doing? That ship's for mining. Okay, is it for this? We'll have these few questions. Would there be that many directors then, especially at the time, who'd have even put anything like that in? Who would have maybe not even thought? No, everything was just like you said. Again, it's almost like the fly on the wall aspect of movie making, where if we were to drop the camera and count it as a documentary, I said it about Jaws, didn't I?
Yeah,
It does feel that that town is real. That if you left that camera there, they wouldn't go cut at any time. You would believe they all lived on that island, and I think
yeah,
you would believe that these guys really did all work together on that ship
yeah,
and everything on that ship. It never felt like a set, does it? I never sat there and thought this is impressive. I thought to myself like, this is good. And the more I looked at the film, and the more you get into it, the more you go, you just believe it.
yeah,
So I think
yeah,
it's all right having those visuals at first and going wow. Like I think the first thing I said to my partner, my wife, I was like, "That's impressive, isn't it? That spaceship." I was
yeah,
like, "That's 1979, and that's
yeah,
fantastic." But it's not never that jaw dropping moment because I think it's almost like everything's too lived in, and I don't mean that as a negative. I mean it as a positive. So it's never really because I think maybe sometimes with visuals, there's like sometimes visuals are made or there's a certain shot and you think, wow, and it almost takes you out of the movie because it's so impressive. You go,
yeah,
how did they do that? That's incredible. Oh my god! And suddenly you're not focusing on the film. And I think that again, like you said, with maybe Ridley Scott knowing how long to linger on shots, is it the same? Has he got the same mindset when it comes to
yeah,
scale, scope, and everything? Like, wow, that's just right. Okay, that's perfect, but we'll show it off, or show it off in this way, or frame it in this way. So
yeah,
we keep up. So people will be impressed, but it will almost be like a subconsciously impressed. Like
yeah,
when you discuss it afterwards, you'll be thinking about how good it was, but nothing will detract from the actual story that's being told. So
yeah. I mean, it's just, again, it's the design. It's everything's well, nothing's wasted, is it? Everything's
no,
there. Everything has a purpose. And unlike a lot of flashy sci-fi where you can have a backboard of a million lights blinking and twinkling and little screens going and people looking at them like, yes, I look like I know what I'm looking at. It's in this, much like
yeah,
Star Wars, switches get flicked and stuff gets turned on. And there's a bit like I think it's when obviously they land on what later we find in Aliens they call Lethal 26, and they damage the ship because
yeah,
the landing gear doesn't sit right, does it?
no,
So they're talking about like fixing it. How long have they got? And Brett and Parker are like extending their hours as much as they can. Taking
yeah,
the
yeah,
piss.
exactly, yeah.
But when Ripley goes down to check out, she's like, oh, "I'm coming down," and they're like, oh, "What's she coming down for?" It's like they've said what they need to say. They don't need her opinion. And Ripley comes down,
No, no.
but they're messing with the vents, and it's all that steam's
Yeah,
coming out from somewhere, and it's like you think, "Oh God, the ship must be pretty fucked if all that's happening." It always is that high,
yeah.
is it about the hydraulics? Is it what is it? What's causing this problem? It's the fact that when she walks away, they turn it off, and
Yeah,
they're just being
that's
dicks.
brilliant.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's those
yeah,
again. It's back to those lovely little character moments where, and they've been thought out. They've been thought out, um, and it's only when I think you really, even when you get to LV426 and you see, you can't see a lot because we see the video feeds from
yeah,
the spacesuit, um, but when you get that wide shot, that establishing shot of the derelict spacecraft, it's not just a flying saucer. It's not just something we've seen before. It's an entirely new vessel, and it's an alien vessel. It's the thought that's gone
yeah,
into it is it wouldn't function the same, or it definitely wouldn't be designed the same
yeah,
as
exactly.
what we're used to. Um, and even Star Wars, which I absolutely we both adore Star Wars. There's not many. There's no sort of distinct alien ships. Everything's sort of fairly recognizable, which is not a problem for
Yeah,
Star
yeah,
Wars. That's the universe they built up. But obviously for Alien, it adds to that mystery, the fact that it's just being abandoned on
yeah,
this ridge of this cliff, and when they enter it, the interior is all. It's almost like it's like bone. It's resin. There's something
yeah,
completely otherworldly to it, which is completely apt. It makes its design
absolutely.
so much sense. And to get into the big sort of the big chamber, which is the cockpit chamber, and this
Yeah,
giant thing, this giant sort of elephant sort of snouted skeleton with its chest burst open. Just even further to that mystery, because there's such a big sort of biomechanical look to it. So that's when the audience starts thinking, well, that's huge. It's dead.
Yeah.
Something's killed it. If something killed that, then we've got something to worry about. Surely, it's
yeah. It's the threat level goes up a notch, don't it? With that.
But then you get
Yeah.
and Kane descends down into the egg chamber, and again there's thousands of eggs,
Yeah.
and then but you get that sense, and I think people tend to. I don't think they miss it. I think it's just one of those things people don't tend to remember. Is that it's got that laser field. It's got there's something
like a layer of like mist, isn't it? Is it like keeping them at? I don't know if is it keeping them at a temperature? Is it keeping them safe? Is it? No one knows.
Who knows? Yeah, but it's just another. It's an extra layer, and he says when he breaks it, it makes a noise. So whether that's that would initiate an alarm if the ship was up and running, or so already you've got questions of why is that ship there? What's that thing in the pilot's chair? Why is it carrying all these eggs? Are these eggs to do with that creature, or is it something else? And it's all these layered questions. The mystery box just it explodes straight away. And then Kane looks at the egg, and it's
amazing special effect as well that nobody really gives enough credit for. And it's not just it pops out of the egg how it opens. It's got that like layer of skin almost. I don't know if it's the face huggers, like it's the center of it that's at the top. I don't think it is, but it's like got that fleshy part over the top.
Yeah, it's got
so when it first opens, he pops his head. And it's before it jumps out. So again, it's that another little shot of rather than them like again, I've always said it before, like lifting the skirt straight away to show everything. It's like that another little tease of like let's drag these people in further. Do you know what I mean? And from a biology standpoint, it's an alien creature. It's an alien. Yeah. Well, we don't know what it is. It's an alien egg, but like it just again, it's that extra bit of care to make this world be more believable.
Yeah, definitely. It's the whole thing that Kane shines the light on it, and you can see something's moving inside it, and then it almost like it's like petals, isn't it? It's sort of petals that are open forming. So there's something otherworldly, but it takes its time. It doesn't just open and, like you said, something doesn't just jump out. It's very slow. It's very it makes you. And I think this is the design of it. Is that naturally if something open like that, quite gentle, and we know that the only other thing that we're aware of opens like that is a flower. You would be intrigued if something didn't jump out at you and open really quick and everything. You probably would be intrigued and go and stick your face near it. I wouldn't say.
Of course.
Prometheus, I wouldn't say you take your helmet off, and start wandering around and and try touching water, weird alien snakes and stuff like that. But there's that caution, and John Hurt plays it really well because he's taken aback. He sort of slips and he's taken aback and everything, but then he cautiously looks forward, and then that shot, such a quick edit, straight on his face, and then we're back to them on the Dallas. Obviously Kane sort of unconscious, and Lambert are trying to get back in the ship, and Ripley quite rightly being the one left in charge as warrant officer saying because of quarantine protocols they can't do anything about it, and this is where the tension starts, and it's really nice that Ripley's already got tension with Brett and Parker. They already don't like her. You get Ripley's very by the book and by the numbers, so by not allowing these guys back in, she's just doing a job. But then Ash takes over as science officer, lets them through, and that's where you start layering very, very finely, layering your little seeds about Ash. If he's a science officer, if he's a science medical officer, then surely he should be sticking up for Ripley and saying, "No, quarantine's an absolute must."
Yeah.
So it does. It early on lays those little seeds about
absolutely. But I think that's really good because when Ash does let them in, we get that nice scene, don't we? Which doesn't come straight after, but it comes a little while after, where Ripley goes and confronts Ash about it.
Yeah.
And again, Ripley's just probing at the time, isn't she? And obviously, she's not to know what we find out about Ash later.
Yeah.
But Ash gives that explanation which does kind of justify his action. So as an audience, like watching it for the first time, because obviously my wife was watching it for the first time, I would have no clue. So I was watching like her reactions to Ash, how he was behaving, and I could tell she was like, "Well, I don't trust him," like all the time. And I was thinking, "Yeah, him." So again, that was really nice though, because he did make his reasoning is what you would maybe find somebody like if he went on to be the hero or went on to be one of the survivors, and he went and then helped again, broke the rule book to save somebody else. Then that would be great. It'd back up all of his actions, and he did give a almost human response to it, which is obviously quite ironic. So it was again really well played, and I do like those films where you're figuring out your team, because at the moment, like we said, there's no one really outstanding protagonist, and we're trying, like you said, we started to get like two assholes below are like just money grabbing. Do you know what I mean?
But that's it. You're a good way into it. I was saying you're a good way in it, and yet if you knew, obviously, in the film that it's Ripley who goes on, sort of franchise keeper, but you wouldn't at that point assume that Ripley would be anything other than alien fodder, because she's set up to be a little bit. I'd say
by the book, characters often aren't looked at. Normally we're looking at rule breakers that we like.
Yeah, that's it. By the book, you think you're a bit of a dickhead, really. And it's put your cat down, fuck off. It's that sort of that's the thing. But
so Jonesy is the main one.
The cat survives.
Jonesy in space.
But that's it, and I think that they sort of build into that. Then there's the sort of scientific approach of, Kane has got this thing latched to his face. None of them know what to do about it. None of them got the first idea.
That first shot's great, isn't it? When it looks like it's almost melted away his helmet, but then when they cut it off, it is actually the organism, because we don't see that until then, do we? So
that's it. It's like I often thought that the stuff around it was almost like a gel to protect him from the atmosphere. Right? So it'd be it's almost like an airbag. Yeah, it sort of forms around everything around it, apart from where the face hug is attached. But seeing that come off and then cutting that and cracking it open and everything, and how when they do try and remove it, it tightens around his throat. So that's the only thing that's keeping him alive at that point, is what they're concerned with. But even then, it's not straight away into this thing's on his face. It's not straight into, oh my god, there's a monster on board or whatever. Again, it still takes its time. There's questions to be asked. There's Ash wants to do his studies. They're talking about what they're going to do. They're like, well, let's just get the ship back. Let's get the ship back to the rest of the ship, essentially, while we figure out what we're doing. And it's the realization that when they try and cut it off and they cut the knuckle and this concentrated acid bleeds out, and you just what a great idea! What a great idea to have something that's up to that point we still don't know what it is or what it's going to do, but it's relatively small. It's it's enough to cover Kane's face, but the fact that it's got acid for blood, you're thinking, well, that's just genius in itself.
Yeah, it is. And I like the scene as well where they go and go a few floors below, because I think it's obviously, as we see that initially, we think, fuck, that's another added danger, like get that on your skin or keep your hands away. But it's the fact that they take that time again. Ridley takes that time for us to go down, and it's not just one, it's not just two. It makes it almost through 3 floors of metal or steel or whatever it is. And even get the pencil, don't they? That they borrow it, and he's like the captain's touching it and see how, because obviously it's stopped at that point. But they're just kind of testing it out, and I think again it just adds to that realism which that 2012 film, I forget, I don't know what it is, Prometheus, that's the one.
Probiotic.
That's the one. Probiotic. I wish. It's the exact opposite. It's the exact of these guys. There is a scientist aboard, but it's logic. You're in space for a start. You're not on ground. You're in space, so you're a team, you're a crew, you've been through shit. So safety is, which is Ripley plays everything by the book, is essential to survive together.
Yeah.
So this has just come through. They don't know what it is. It's attached to one of the crew members, and they take the time, which could be a mundane scene for some people, for modern audiences. But for us, it's like it shows that this crew clearly are competent at the work.
Yeah.
Like, and I think little things like that, it's a cumulative effect that adds up. That again, where everyone was complaining about Prometheus, where people land on a planet, take their helmets off, or they start touching things and stuff. As an audience, you sit there, it like swipes all believability away from it.
Yeah.
But no one really seems to give credit to the other side of that when people
Yeah.
do put these scenes in place, which I think again it builds to making your characters believable. When a character stands there and is stood and getting a little bit of respite from having the raindrop on his face and to refreshing himself, to me thinking, you've had this. You believe that he's weary and he's tired because all of his action so far has been like a real person. So you don't think, oh, you idiot, just look around or do this. You believe because you've seen the actions that they've been through. You've seen the actions that they've done and that they take. So when someone's weary or tired or is surprised, you genuinely do believe that is what's happened and not just like they are fodder to be wiped out.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was like earlier on to their reaction of when they're woken up and we realise that they're not anywhere where they should be. They're a lot further away from Earth than what they should be at that point. And the reaction is that, it's a bit of like, oh god, it's almost like they just think, well, that's a bit of a ball ache. It's not, no one's panicked that they're off course or anything. It's just, well, why are we here then? So Dallas talks to Mother, the ship's computer, and that's when they get about the signal being intercepted. But they go and investigate anyway because they're getting paid regardless, and it's like you say, it just adds that layer of character to them. So when things do kick off, when the facehugger has dropped off and everyone's rushing to see Kane because he's awake, and they talk about how you're feeling and everything, and so what do you remember? And he just talks about sort of this almost like nightmare about being smothered and so what he was experiencing wasn't just, he wasn't just asleep, he wasn't unconscious. It's like the extra layer of not only is this thing doing whatever it was, because at that point we don't know what it's done, was attached to him and that, but he's still suffering for it in one respect. It wasn't.
It's very rapey, isn't it? Like a lot of the Geiger's designs anyway are very sexual, aren't they? And I think that like it's like very much like body violation, isn't it? Like it's not just, it doesn't just impregnate him. And I mean, a man being impregnated anyway, but it doesn't just do that. It's the fact that it's through its mouth. It's almost like very sexual, isn't it? And it stays there as well, and it's like very personal, very close, and stuff. So it is that like it is really uncomfortable as well. So those undertones just add that extra layer of, again, believability, but again of like you've got that extra additional sympathy for Kane. We're not just intrigued to find out; we're also worried for him as well.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And I think it goes straight into, up to that point, it's relatively played safe. It's mysterious, but it's safe. And then we get the dinner scene, which again is just one of those, another iconic moment from that movie, and it's the whole. Everything seems fine, and it's played for laughs. It's played, they're having a joke. They're saying that they're gonna have one last meal before they go back into stasis. And it's like they're all laughing and joking, and it's that whole sort of thing. Well, the first thing I'm going to do when I get back is have some decent food, and then there's that panic, that whole sort of choking effect, but it's Parker's first reaction is to go, "Hey, the food's not that bad."
Yeah,
they don't know, and obviously, and then they're putting the spoon in his mouth so he doesn't bite his tongue off, and there's all that sort of concern. And then the chest burster comes out, which again, the only thing we've seen so far is a facehugger. So that going from this thing that's now dead to this thing bursting out of his chest, looks at them and fucks off across the table. And again,
you mean it doesn't sing with the top up?
It does. Hello, my honey. Hello, my baby. It's what was it? Oh no, not again.
Not again. God bless his soul.
Bless him. Yes, his balls. Anyway, so it fucks off, but I think Parker grabs her. He's got a his knife or his fork. He holds it up like, I'm like, no, don't touch it.
Is it Veronica Cartwright? It's like, oh God, that kind of thing. That's a natural, real reaction because none of them knew what was happening apart from John Hurt, was it? Knew what would happen in that scene.
It's
So I go and
amazing.
watch it with a friend ages ago, and he was like, yeah, because there was like, that's really poor acting. I was like, what? I was like, you do realise that that's a natural reaction because she didn't know what was happening. I was like, not everyone can scream on like like they're getting ready to warm up for opera. Like some people's reaction is to like revert into themselves and withdraw, and it's fantastic. And again, it's so iconic now that when you're almost like. Not us because we appreciate it. And I don't just mean just us. I mean, like, not the fans, they appreciate that. But it's almost like if you were to show a modern audience now, it's so ingrained into our film culture and stuff that, and what's gone before and what's tried to replicate Alien after, is that it's almost like that is one of the biggest set pieces of the film. But like, if you were then trying to sell this film on one scene, maybe audiences wouldn't be impressed. But again, these scenes really work because of how visceral they are, and how everything's built up and how much we care about the character. But it works because like carefully the film's crafted up until that point, up until you will know these people, you will get to know it. It's almost like this is routine for these people. This is routine. We get to do this. We get to do that. We get to investigate a distress call. Oh, something's happened. Oh, that's not great. Oh, one of our members, we found this weird thing. But then there's the logical approach to, like you said, we don't just start fighting. There's a weird alien on board. We try and attack it and everything. We go through again the stage this crew logically should take. So again, it's that tension. It's that build up, and I just feel that again, this scene works because of that, because of everything that's come before it. And when you get these top 10 lists, or you see these film reviews and they talk about breaking down the scene, I think that's maybe. Again, I don't want to sound really superior about this, but I think that's maybe what some modern movie audiences, like I'm sure you know a few people that have maybe like a few people younger than yourself, even might be family members or whatever. Or you say, "Oh, watch this," and they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't think it was that good," or "Yeah, it's a bit slow," or "Oh, that looks a bit." But again, the effects are fantastic, the old orc, but it's not about that. It's about the pure unexpectedness of it, the pure terror, the fact that they're totally out of out of their depth.
Yeah.
And the fact is now, like, again, we've now come to the part where, wow, most of them have fucked it. There's this little thing that they're going to catch, and they're so ill prepared to go and catch it. With the fact is, they probably would have more of a chance catching Jonesy when he first fucks off when they open the thing. So again, it never feels out of place. It's never like a spectacle to go, oh, look at this, and then it like kind of the film is built around those set pieces. Each set piece connects nicely together to continue the story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's the beauty of it is that they like you said, the logical steps is that they come up with this micro emitter that it measures changes in air density. So it's only got a small range. So and when they do go after it, they've got a very low voltage cattle prod, a net, and this thing. So they split off in teams, and we follow. Is it Ripley? It's Ripley,
Brett and Parker,
Brett Parker, yeah. And it's the way that sort of they go off, and Parker sort of accidentally, it's Jones. They think he's let him go, and it's Jones, but it's all like, no, you need to go and get him. It's like you were saying, it's only the cat, but you need to go and get him because we need him out of the way. Yeah, that's it. And it's that beauty of also going in where you said it earlier. It's a beautiful idea that he's, he lets the water sort of drench over him. He sort of, like you said, takes that moment to refresh himself, and you get the idea that they're in the bowels of the ship, so they are sweating, it's hot, it's grimy, but it's very dark. It's very just like a lot of browns and blacks and greys sort of textures and colours and stuff. And the fact that,
but it's good for his character to see some light as well.
Yeah,
that's the believable part about it.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And but I think it's that first instance of when he's faced finally with the alien. The last thing we saw was this tiny sort of also like yellow bone type colour thing covered in
Yeah.
blood, someone away, and this thing which at one point, it's there's a shot. I'm sure it's like it's attached to one, it chains or anything, but because you don't
It's
know
in the
what you're looking
director's
for,
cut, isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but you don't know what you're looking for, so you wouldn't know to look. Unless obviously you've seen the creature later on, you don't know what you're looking for. So for this thing to sort of drop down and unfurl and then rise up and be like, sort of like 7 foot tall, and still not getting a glimpse of, only getting a little glimpse of it, and then the teeth,
Yeah.
those look at that death grin, um,
Yeah.
and you just hear him, oh, sort of disappearing,
Yeah.
and that's it. You know,
I mean,
it's
that is absolutely fantastic. The bit where, because it is in the director's cut, and I've watched that cut twice now, and the theatrical cut.
yeah,
Well, I couldn't count how many times I watched the theatrical cut, but and even then I was caught out by it because I was watching it and a couple of nights ago, and as it's obviously swinging, I was just again I know what it is, but I just like it just happens before your eyes. It's just perfectly shot and blended in, and then I was like, what? I was like, oh yeah, of course I was. And to me, that's you imagine this is the first, like you said, the first time you see it, you're not really like. There's no like crescendo to build to go look at this and now you guys are in trouble. Your characters are in trouble. It's again a real kind of the alien's clearly like watching its prey and
yeah,
and it is that almost sense of extra sense of fear for an audience where you think, hang on a second, this predator's not just taking a chance and going for it. This predator's like, why isn't he doing that? He's like
yeah,
calculated. He's swift. He's like almost like he's ice cool. Like the Predator film, obviously that will come later in the 87 maybe is it?
yeah, yeah,
It's that point again where you don't see a creature like a wild animal out of them. You see that it's calculated. It doesn't need to make the first move
yeah,
as soon as it sets foot on its prey. It's almost like it has the advantage because it is the perfect organism.
yeah,
It
definitely,
knows exactly what it's doing, and
yeah,
it's almost scarier for the because you just completely at that point know that there's no way that character's surviving.
yeah,
That character does not know. Like as an audience, we do not know what is about to hit us and yeah, it's just great like to actually have a scene that is so good that I can't believe didn't make it to the theatrical cut. It's just perfect.
yeah. Well, I say it's just it's so. Again, it's like you said with Jaws. It's so sort of everything's kept hidden, and kept back, but for the benefit of the audience, because you're only getting glimpses
Yeah,
of bits here and there and whatever, and it's it lets your imagination play with you. Your fear sort of comes from your imagination, but then to sort of move on to to Parker's. Sorry, Brett's. Is it Brett? Oh, I can't remember. I was getting mixed up.
yeah, Brett's Harry
Yeah.
Dean Stanton. I'm
Yes.
sure
Yeah.
that
So Brett's dead. Kane's dead. Um, so the next thing is that they know it's using the air ducts to move around in. That's what they figure out, and it's normally like Dallas is sort of as the captain. You wouldn't normally think they put themselves in like a lot of films. The hero figure is the captain or whatever, and they do put themselves in danger. But when he goes into the air ducts and they have that plan to follow it and chase it around and everything. I wouldn't. With first viewing, I would not have said that Dallas was going to die at that point. It
no,
just,
same
you know,
here.
and the fact that again, all you see, it's a great thing about his character is he's panicked when they start realizing
Yeah,
he's confused. Oh, where do I go? I don't, he doesn't know what to do with himself when he's trapped in that environment, and he's looking about, and there's a sheer panic to him. He's
yeah,
really concerned for his
absolutely.
safety, which is
Yeah,
such a beautiful character moment. It's because it very rarely happens in
yeah,
film, and and then for it just to him turning around and he goes, he looks left, it's not there. He looks right, it's not there. He looks left again, it's there. But he just reaches out for him. You just hear a
yeah,
scream, reach out for him, and that's it. He's lying cuts dead. And it's only then when and I find it when Dallas is out of the way because Ripley's in charge and she wants answers, and she goes to Mother and she gets the whole,
yeah,
the whole the crew's expendable and all that. And Ash finally reveals himself to be on company orders, crew are expendable.
yeah,
So you get, and even to that point, you just think, well, he's a bit of a dickhead. He's a really horrible piece of shit. You can always see why he's sort of urged caution into not running around chasing after it. And not obviously just because it's got acid for blood and it's highly dangerous, but there's another layer to it. But then he malfunctions, and you think, hang on a minute, what the fuck is going on? And it's only when Parker, he knocks his head off.
Yeah.
And
it's hanging behind him. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good, and it's another iconic moment. It completely blows your expectations because at that point when Parker grabs the fire extinguisher and swings for him, you think, oh, he's going to fall over dead. That'll be the end of Ash. But no, it's another twist. It's another layer, and the fact that they get to speak to him again once his head's off. And he's very honest then, because he's faced with, I'd say, his own mortality. Whether you call that for an android, I don't know. But when he's sort of faced with that he's like, it is the perfect organism. Again, he reiterates all that, and then it's like, oh, I don't like your chances, and he smiles.
Yeah, you have my sympathies, is it, or something like that? Yeah. Because he says you admire it, doesn't he? And he says, he admires its purity, something like that, like how efficient it is.
Yeah, because it's something. He's probably classing himself because of the advancement of AI. If he's saying I admire its purity, then obviously there's a layer of either resentment or jealousy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what plays in with Bishop in Aliens, is that Bishop seems less human than what Ash was put in there.
He infiltrated the crew, didn't he?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And whereas Bishop is very more reserved. He's a bit like, I think he's a bit like an Alfred character. He's a bit like a Butler character who sort of goes around and he's just very eager to please. He doesn't want to upset anyone. He's very polite and whereas Ash is just, again, for all intents and purposes, he's one of the guys. He's one of the crew. But they do say, don't they? So they said we worked with him before to Dallas earlier on, and I think did say he was a last-minute replacement or
I think it is. Yeah.
Like so that's gone, and then they decide to blow up the ship and go for the shuttle. But it gets in. It gets Lambert, which is one of those moments that I think, watching it with my partner, and when Lambert's just stood there, sort of shaking, going, "Oh God," doing all that sort of thing, crying and everything. Beck was like, well, "Why don't you just move? Why don't you run away?" But I think the fact that she's completely taken by fear, and then you get the weird, its tail sort of moves up between her legs.
Yeah.
So you don't know what it's doing. So then Parker intervenes.
Yeah.
And gets a very gruesome end.
Yeah.
In a jar, I think, isn't it? It's his skull, I think. But over Ripley's listening to them over the comm, isn't she?
Yeah, because she's racing towards them, isn't she, to try and intervene? Yeah.
But you just get a weird, horrible scream and heavy breathing.
Yeah.
And then it sort of all cuts out, and it's, again, you don't know what it's doing to him at that point.
No.
It's so good.
I find that you're right though about that, because my wife, she did the same. She was like, "Well, that's pathetic." Not, again, just from a character point of view, not saying the film, but like we're almost. It's really difficult because obviously things do change, and as our expectations change, we expect added level of realism. And this is not going back to say that older films don't have enough realism, but you'd assume, just applying some logic, you'd assume that if you'd never heard of a film and someone said to you, "Hi, look at these things. We've had them since you know, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, you would expect at some point the films to get better and better. And we're at a stage now almost where actually we have a certain film that elevates far above whatever genre it is, and it's a perfect example of it. And they've stayed the test of time.
Yeah.
So with certain things, you know, some audiences might not be able to relate to that again. But actually, from my point of view, I think that's one of the things now that we don't actually see things like that in modern cinema. We don't see people completely frozen by fear. We do get the almost like self-aware, like films like Scream, where they're always like people in horror films run out the window, run upstairs instead of out the window or out the door or whatever. But actually, do we ever see things that people can be frozen by fear? Because Lambert, I always felt, was on there to be part of the crew because she's very intelligent and obviously had her own role within there. But she's the first to complain about everything. She slaps Ripley, knowing Ripley's done her job, and she still holds that grudge, even though the fact that Ash let them back on board. When this thing bursts out Kane's chest, she's like, oh my God, she's behind. And I'm not saying that's not a situation that me or you might not react that way, but everyone seems to get their shit together to a certain point of view to either find it or to move forward. She's the one that is quite meek and mild-mannered. And I think that it's like watching these films, you know, like when you get two guys face off with guns and you're like, I just shoot them first. The fact is that your own preservation for your own life has to kick in at some point. And if you stood there with a 7 or 8 foot creature in front of you that's just murdered nearly all the crew, I would be thinking, one move out, mate, that thing's on top of me.
Yeah.
You just genuinely would not know what to do, would you?
Yeah, it's designed to be pure nightmare fuel. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think modern filmmakers, especially sort of more films that are out there for the quick dollar, you might have turned around and extended that word. You know, there'd have been a tire iron or a massive wrench sort of place like you see her edging away and like, ooh, I'll just reach that and she'd smack it over the head. Or something like that. It'd be all his head going, oh, fuck me.
Oh, my baby.
But it's just that it plays really well. She's completely terrified. We don't know what it's doing to her, and again that adds to that fear, that that terror that you only got your imagination to go on. And then we sort of reached that last bit where originally, the script was going to end with Ripley getting onto the shuttle, the Narcissus shuttle.
Yeah.
And the Nostromo was going to blow up, and that was that. But it was Ridley Scott who came up that fourth act, and asked for some more money. And thank God, because it just, again, you get that point where you believe everything is safe. You believe Ripley's in the shuttle. She puts Jonesy down. She gets sorted out. She's getting ready for her sleep, and and it's that whole sort of. A lot of films, especially older films, do tend to have your resolution. We talked about this before, I think, where you have your resolution and end. That's it. Roll credits. There's no epilogue, or there's no sort of afterthought. You don't have like Return of the King where you have 12 endings, and that sort of thing. And it's things get to a natural progression, and a lot of older films think, well, we can't really take it anywhere else, so that's it. Finished. Bad guy's been shot there. Especially the westerns, shoot the bad guy, end credits.
Yeah. Sometimes the credits creep up, and then they just before they've shot, and then they have to go back down and then go back up again.
Fuck off. But so this is to have her going around. You think, oh, we're just getting into that bit. We're going to have like a little epilogue where she's going to get safe. We're going to see her get in the chamber. End credits. Well, hang on a minute. What's this? She's getting set up. She's, and it's the fact that again, because the way the design is, you don't notice the alien sleeping. Amongst the the pipe work and everything, the fact that it's been clever enough to go and sleep in there, is it by design? This creature's gone into the shuttle. Is it, is it aware of what it's doing for survival, or is it just common? Is it, and the fact that she's, as soon as it reaches out, that Anne comes out, that sort of jump scare and everything. It almost yawns, doesn't it? Opens its mouth and the jaw comes out, opens, it stretches a bit. Back in, and she gets into the singing that little she's panicked as well. She starts singing that Lucky Star song.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a nursery rhyme. She's climbing into the spacesuit. And yeah, and it's sort of brilliant confrontation. She slams the button, it gasses it out, and it scrambles, doesn't it? It doesn't just
It
climb
does.
out. It
Yeah.
fucking crashes. Opens the airlock, bang, out it goes. Still not over.
No.
She climbs into the engine, and she blasts it with the engine, but it flies out from the engine again. It's another layer where it doesn't get burnt up. It doesn't
No.
melt away or anything. It sort of falls out into space. Is it alive? Is it dead?
Yeah.
You just don't know. Which I think is a lot better ending than Ridley Scott's proposed ending, where it bit Ripley's head off and spoke in her voice that it was coming home.
Yeah. I think that would have been.
It's a fair idea. It'd be interesting. Another layer of mystery to the alien.
Yeah.
But
kind of takes away from it being a pure perfect organism, doesn't it? A little bit. It almost feels like, to me, the ending, what would have been ideal if they wanted something like that, would have been Ash to have survived intact and to have killed Ripley when Ash to have been on board and killed Ripley and almost brought the creature back, subdued the creature, helped Ripley to subdue it. You think the robot's learned his ways, he actually gets rid of Ripley and then he says, we're bringing it home. That kind of thing would have worked for me. And I get, not saying that I'd wanted that. I think this is just, it's perfect, isn't it? It's great. But I think, having the alien speak might have just taken it a little bit, again, touching on those like 50s kind of B movie. Suddenly this creature can talk, and it's just a bit of a coincidence kind of thing. Again, like you said, fair idea, very interesting idea. But I think that it'd be just been a bit of a waste of a good development of Ripley. And in our current climate, this is what I'd call a true strong female character.
Yes. Yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah, I mean, she goes from again, it's hard to initially like getting to know Ripley. It's hard to like her fully because she's very by the book. And some people do like that. Some people don't. We used to in films liking a rogue character or someone who's just a
pure
little
escapism, isn't it? That you can't do that. If you go into your work and tell your boss to fuck off, you're not going to survive long, are you? There, so you do like those little rebels that you think that that break away from kind of like what we can get away with in real life. But I don't find Ripley terrible at all. Or I know you're not saying you did at all, but I mean, I never found her to the point where I've read that some people have like the total shock that she turns out to be the main protagonist because of how unlikable she is. I never found that. I just found the fact that I found like me telling her in my head to fuck off because those two guys were funny and relatable. That's all. I never found her like to be awful or anything like that.
That's the genius of casting, and that's the trust Ridley Scott puts in his casting director. Is that with them saying that these are unisex characters and that they chose Sigourney Weaver, they chose that actress for that role, regardless of what gender she was going to be, or gender Ripley was going to be. Sorry. Again, it's testament to Sigourney Weaver as an actress carrying that role, regardless of what her identity was at the scripting stage. And it could have been easily been a male-centric movie. Like you said, it could have been Dallas who survived at the end. It could have been, you switch roles around. It could have been John Hurt playing Ripley, and Sigourney Weaver could have been Kane. He could have killed her off, and whatever. But it's it's such a great move to cast her. And I think when we're banding around, there's been a lot of this. I always say we're never getting. I don't want to get into sort of the politics of things, but there's been a lot of stuff banded about sort of strong female characters. And you're very, very right. It's before. I think was it just the year before we got Laurie Strode.
We did, yeah.
So we'd started that, and I'm not saying there weren't strong female characters in other films before, but by any means, there's always been.
Of course.
But this is the first time I remember, in my very young memory, that the lead was a female who survived to the end. It wasn't because my knowledge of films at the time was very limited. So
of course,
you didn't tend to see growing up when we did. A lot of films would have been female characters, either damsels in distress or sort of cocky mouthed, sort of like heroines who but they always hung on like the side of the main hero. So to have that, and it be a very serious role as well. It wasn't she wasn't hokey. She wasn't she didn't become like a female sort of over the top.
Yeah, she didn't kill the shit out of it, did she? She
didn't,
used her brain, and she used a knowledge of what a character would know to defeat. She basically knew the layout of the ship and used the surroundings and environment to get the better of this creature. She didn't suddenly start shooting the shit out of it, did she?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, which goes back to her character throughout the entire thing. That she's very by the book, so she would know what these buttons and the shoulder do. She would know what where things are and that. And it's it's such a good call.
And it makes us fear it, doesn't it? Because where she's on the seat and she's sat waiting for it to get behind her to the perfect position, and then she does that little turn and she lets that little scream out because it's so close, and it adds to that tension of the fact that she knows that she doesn't know how quick it moves yet. She knows obviously how dangerous it is, but she barely knows shit about it. And that from an audience perspective is quite scary, and it, from a directing point of view, it's just really good, because it's that point again where we've seen the creature now, so you've got all that suspense, all that imagination that's gone by the wayside, and we're still trying to figure out, because again we don't see it, we're still seeing it like curled up like you said, and we're seeing it like slink down onto the floor after she's sprayed it to get out of position, but it's still framed really, really well, that we see it from certain points of view, and like off not off screen, but like the angle's kind of off all the time, or it's so quick as it's getting into position. So I think from that perspective, it works for a character like you said, because it's that intelligence, it's that everyday hero. Nobody's going to pick up a crowbar, like you said, or a wrench and smack it on the face. She's not going to outstrength it. She's got to outthink it, and it's on her terms. And I thought you said, going back to her character, it fits that, and it also fits the squeezing more tension out of the alien, even though that we've now seen exactly what it looks like. So it just works on every level for me. It's perfect.
And it's nice that it hit a time pre one-liner as well. Ripley didn't need a one-liner. It's not like like end of Terminator, which again is just a phenomenal film with another strong female lead in it. Yeah. But you get Sarah Connor and your Terminator fucker. And he's sort of building up, and very typical of the 80s to throw in.
Wouldn't you have liked Arnold Schwarzenegger? I need my space.
That is genius.
Probably not.
It's genius. Oh, completely different movie.
It is, yeah.
Do it now. Get out the airlock. Brilliant. Oh, mate. Oh, Alien science, obviously. Sorry, a massive tangent now.
Yeah.
But,
I don't like to get into the politics of it, mate. But I think the current state of the diversity train that Hollywood wants to almost reinvent and be almost like rewrite history, that we suddenly need to have all these strong female characters because we've never had them, just detracts from how perfect these characters and how great these characters were, but also shows a little bit of sadness, because it's like they can't really match what's happened before.
This is the thing, yeah, you're right, and I think it comes into modern filmmaking as well, where it's almost not like because modern filmmakers and modern the studios are very aware that times have changed, and but instead of trying something new or pushing these things into the right way, you get stuff like Alien Covenant, where Catherine Watson, and she's a great actress. She's a really, really good actress, but she's so Ripley. Before she's and I think Alien Covenant was very much a greatest hits, or tried to be a greatest hits of the Alien franchise. And I'm sure we'll probably cover this at some point in the future. But Catherine Watson, she starts off very much like Ripley did, at the start in Alien, but then towards the end, when it's the fan, she's in a white vest top you know, flamethrower guns, and she becomes Ripley from Aliens. So rather than being her own thing, they just went, oh well, Ripley was iconic for this in Alien. Ripley was extremely iconic in in Aliens for these reasons. Let's dress her in the same. Let's give her a short haircut.
Yeah.
And again,
and it's sad, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is because there must be countless scripts, unproduced scripts floating about. Yeah, I think they have a list, don't they? It's like the greatest unproduced scripts. There's sat in studios, and it's scripts that have been bought early on because they were really good, but people just don't quite know when the right time to put them in production or whatever. And there must be hundreds, thousands of scripts floating around there that are just dying to be made, that have original characters in, or almost original characters. Yet we're sort of stuck with the same. It might be 30 years down the line, but I don't need to see, Alien Redux. I don't need to see.
No, and I just find it really. I know it's pathetic, such a strong word, but I find it pathetic that, like, it almost fails to respect its own franchise. It's like, look. What we'll do is we'll try and subconsciously, like you said, dress this character, revisit the greatest hits, so that we can. That it's familiar. The audience can feel familiar. They might not recognise it, but it'll feel familiar and natural in this franchise. So it's almost, we'll trick them into liking her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it totally disrespects what's come before it, because it's almost like, it's not about Ripley. It's not about Ripley. It's not about Ripley. Look, but then actually, it is all about Ripley. It's like, don't look at Ripley. Don't look at Ripley. It's like the ex-girlfriend that's like, my ex-boyfriend. I'm gonna love him. I'm gonna love him. I'm gonna love him. I'm loving. It's not about see how much I don't care about the ex. Oh, actually, I'm doing this because of the ex. And it's almost like the entire main character from this is, like, from the way she dresses, from the way she acts, is because they just don't want you to remember Ripley almost, but then they want you to, because then you can get the iconic imagery in your head and you can subconsciously like that character without the work going in. Whereas Sigourney Weaver had none of that. She didn't have any like nice character moments where, or somebody finds out, oh yeah, she's a lovely person, or look at this. It was like, no, actually, some of you might think she's a bit of a tool. It was her actions that you stopped, that you liked before she got shit done.
But that's it, and I think that's the testament to doing Aliens, because you wouldn't expect naturally a sequel off of Alien. I mean, there was a bit of a problem with like the rights and stuff like that. Fox were like the subcontract issues, which prevented Alien 2 from going into production straight away. So I don't think it was greenlit until '83, and then we didn't get it till '86 anyway. But which is a decent amount of time for audiences to have that gap, and you know, Sigourney Weaver did a lot of great things. Obviously, Ghostbusters, and she did Working Girl, and all these different sort of jobs prior to that. So again, and I can't wait to do Aliens in a few.
No, I can't wait.
It's just a completely different monster, isn't it? It's just completely.
Well, it's the way to do a sequel, isn't it?
Oh yeah, completely.
It's to respect the lore, to respect the characters, what's come before, but do something different.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's not like it was a spaceship. No, it's a shed. Alien 2.
Yeah, that's it. It's just brilliant, mate. It is. It's and it's such a good film. I would like to, because we tend to say this at the start, and I think we missed out on this one. But when did you see it first? What's your earliest memory of
Alien? I think I must have been around 15, 16. And I think, like you, I think I would have been like, and I'm glad I actually didn't see it younger. I'm glad I waited, because I said before, I was never such a massive horror fan as a youngster. I know that some people, like, when they get to 7 or 8, they're like, oh my god, I want to watch it and stuff. Like my parents were never really into like Hammer horror, stuff like that. They were more into modern horror, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if that maybe they were at the time. It's just maybe another conversation we've never really had. That's all. And so I think, like, we got Sky Movies, and like when I was like 14, 15, 3 channels, like Movies Gold and stuff. I think the first horror film I watched was Fright Night, and loved that film. And obviously I think, like was saying, like Star Wars around the same time. I was obviously watching films up until then, but then that was the age where I knew it was like an industry I'd want to study closer or get into, whether it be a hobby, a career, or anything. And I think that I must have known some of the scenes and be aware of them and stuff. But I can remember just sitting and watching it on Sky Movies and thinking, I need to really sit and watch this. And I can remember speaking to a friend and they said, yeah, it's all right. And it disappointed me. I was like, oh, all right, this is Alien. I keep hearing nothing but good things about it. My dad said it's really good. And do you know what I mean? And stuff. And I'm going to watch it tonight. And like, because I used to, the certain friend, and I got to the point where I knew I'd really enjoy a film if he really hated it. Yeah. So we'd like leave school, we'd go in, we'd often either go to the park or we'd go and play football on the old park together. And I always used to leave early to get home to have me tea and then to get a couple of movies on. So I'd be up till about like 1 o'clock watching a good couple of movies. And Alien I watched, I just couldn't believe the quality of it. It's like, obviously I'm talking about like maybe 93, 94, 94, 95, something like that. So obviously it's still, it's still a good amount of times passed from 79. And I was just thought, wow, this is the greatest spaceship I've ever seen. And look at all these guys that look like, and all these women that look like dirty and grotty and like believable, that they do look like they've been working away. And I was just blown away by it. And I can remember speaking to my dad about it the next day, saying how much I enjoyed it. And he was like, yeah, it's a good film, isn't it? And he told me then that he watched it on video after it came out. And then he said, but I think you might like Aliens better. And then obviously I proceeded to watch that the next night with him. So, so it was I'm probably happy though that I didn't watch it any younger, because I appreciated, I wasn't bored through it. I wasn't going to be one of those annoying kids that wanted everything to happen. I was just old enough to appreciate the tension and the build up and stuff. So I think that'd be my first. I think I was always aware of were there any action figures? Were you aware of any action figures? I was aware of like Terminator, Predator, RoboCop, stuff like that.
I remember our mutual friend Slacky had a lot of the stuff from Aliens. I
think I had a conversation with Slacky about
like a snake alien and a panther alien and a flying alien queen. Things, and also there were figures out there, but they were all, because Ridley Scott did say, one of the laws of Alien was that it takes from its host.
It takes characteristics, doesn't it?
So toy companies ran with that, and they really, really ran with it. There was Scorpion Alien and all sorts of random stuff. They were all with different colours and multicolored and stuff like that. But yes, there was when Alien came out, I think Kenner did a big doll. There was a model kit, and I think there was a board game where you were the crew, and the crew had to get to the shuttle, the escape shuttle.
Awesome.
And that. But so it was limited, but there was stuff out there.
Did you ever play the Alien 3 video game on the Genesis or Mega Drive, depending where you come from?
The Alien Trilogy game on
the PlayStation.
PlayStation, yeah.
Yeah, see, I played the. I'm going to YouTube that tonight just to watch someone play that, because I did play that as well. That and the Die Hard trilogy, I think they had on roughly around the same time. But I can remember getting Alien 3 for the for the Mega Drive, and it was this which is bizarre, obviously, because you've got a gun straight away and you're Ripley with this shaved head and stuff. But you started the level like on the planet, not in the prison or establishment or whatever, and it was almost like left to right, side scrolling, shooting aliens, one hit, explode the aliens. So there's a lot of aliens, and then it was almost became not a puzzle, but like where you had like ladders up and down and everywhere in pipes and stuff. And it was obviously very difficult for me at the time to play it, but it just had this kind of creeping atmosphere about it. So I think I even wonder if I'd played that before I'd sat and watched. Because I know there was a few arcade games that were pretty good as well. Like looking back later in like late 90s when I were 16, 17 and been able to like if we went like pop to the seaside or anything like that, I'd be like, that's Alien, that's Terminator 2, like, right, I'm gonna go on that and like intentionally look for those arcade cabinets. So what about you? Can you remember your first time?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah. I was. It's my dad again. My dad's.
I was just going to ask if it was.
He's my movie hero. Yeah. I was sick. I was poorly. I was off school, and I think my dad must have been working nights because he was off that day, or he'd been to bed and he was getting up, and I think my gran had to go out shopping or something like that. So my dad came and sat with me, and he said, "Oh, watch this." Because obviously back then you used to record everything off the TV. You just take everything off the TV.
My favourite VHS at home was what my dad recorded was the Delta Force with Monster Squad following it.
Delta Force. Can you imagine those two as a mashup?
That'd be brilliant. Yeah.
Chuck
The
Norris
Delta Squad. The Monster Force.
Monster Force, yeah. But yeah, it was. It's such a vivid memory of watching Alien, and obviously being a kid, I was about seven or eight.
Yeah.
And I said being poorly, so the only thing I could eat was soup. The only soup we had in was vegetable soup, and this is how vivid it is. I remember eating it, and the face that I got on John Hurt's face. And being a kid, you do ask questions, and
of course you do, yeah.
And I say, "Oh, Dad, what's that?" "Oh, it's putting an egg in him." So, "What do you mean?" So he's putting an egg down his throat. And he was telling me this while I was eating this vegetable soup, and there was honestly massive pee in this soup. That at the moment he was telling me, it went down, and it went down really slow. And my dad was telling me that this thing was putting an egg inside his throat, this guy's throat, and I just freaked. I was like, and my dad was so like nonchalant. It just like
inside.
Probably was laughing his head off, but he'd probably just turn around and go, "Deal, stop being stupid. Watch this, shut up." But that was my first memory watching Alien.
When was that? I know you said you were at school, but can you remember? Would it have been roughly the same time as me? Maybe mid-90s or?
Yeah, I was 8, so
early 90s.
84, 92.
So you might have seen it actually just before me, though.
Yeah, 92. Yeah, 91, 92. Yeah, because we went to.
Yeah, that would have been later than that. Yeah.
Because I mean, it was just before Alien 3 came out. Because it's random, completely almost off topic, but we went abroad to like Gran Canaria, and they used to show films in bars back then.
Oh yeah, I watched Titanic. Well, I say watched Titanic. Yeah. And my dad went and actually tried to drown ourselves while the rest of the family watched Titanic.
But it was just one of those things. You just went in a bar, you had your meal and you had your drinks while a big screen was playing a film that hadn't been out in a lot of other places at that point. Yeah. And it was Alien 3, and we sat and watched it from start to finish. It's just one of those things. So that was that. Mm.
Yeah, no, I do remember that. I know that's a bit of a tangent, but I do remember going to Cyprus for my uncle's wedding, and me and my dad on the first night watching the X-Files movie. And this guy kept trying to talk to my dad, and he was just like talking to me, watching the telly, and my dad like trying to explain to this foreign guy, obviously like he's watching this film, he's not interested. And this guy was like, Bond, it's like, I'm not interested. And then obviously I remember Titanic, everyone being obsessed. I was glad I was away, because obviously the amount of hysteria that surrounds that film, where I'm not saying James Cameron's not a genius, he is. But I do think Titanic, almost like 50 Shades of Grey recently and stuff, I think people just got swept up in that film. Unfortunately, swept up and survived, not swept up and taken with them. But I can remember again Titanic, and my dad was like, "There's some football on, do you want to watch it?" And I just went, "Dad, who is it?" And he went, "It's not Titanic." And we was like, "Go on then." So,
oh, bless you.
Yeah, I miss that. I think they should do that more.
Yeah,
legal films, legal broadcasts, showings, viewings of films. Yeah, would be good actually to have a. Do you think that? In fact, I think that'd be a dream to have to own a bar where you attract the right type of clientele to sit there and be able to for them to watch something and as a group, like maybe new
Yeah.
things, like also to appreciate the older stuff, to not have like dickheads coming in and ruin the
Yeah.
experience, and to that's a pipe dream for me.
Brilliant.
So overall, then your final thoughts. Anything that you've noticed on rewatching it, or anything you'd tell anybody watching it at home?
It's just a great film. It's a film to lose yourself in, and it's so easy to appreciate
Yeah,
everything that's going on. I don't think there's not a moment lost, and it's aged beautifully, and it will continue to age beautifully. And it's going to be it'll be forever classic. That's it. Yeah.
There's a few films I'd put in there that I think age better than fine wine, and I always think like um, the majority of the indie films, so like Raiders and Last Crusade, Star Wars original trilogy, Jaws, this Test of Time. It's a snapshot of that time, but the quality of the film and the quality of the shots, the quality of just individual acting and scenes, like it's almost like you're opening up a photo album. So it's like it's almost physically there. It works. It's almost like I always say, excuse me, with the Blu-ray release of indie films, and same with Alien, same with these films. You put them on and you're like, yeah, some things obviously you can tell it was made a while ago. Like with the computers, they might now, if it was made 10 years ago, they might have like add slightly more. They might have gone, we'll actually have up to date computers or something like different with the lighting. But for the majority of the film, I always say it looks like it was made yesterday. Same with the original Star Wars trilogy. You watch that 4K Blu-ray, looks like it was made yesterday. The Indiana Jones film, stuff like that. And I think there's only probably maybe 10 films I could maybe fit onto that kind of categorized as they were made yesterday. They were like, and you were right. It just ages perfectly. And my last thought is not really about the film. It's more about the universe. Is the fact that number one, how many clones, how many, how many copycats it created. And also, have you played Alien Isolation, the game that came out in 2018?
No.
I've got it, and I played the first 40 minutes till the alien came, and then I shit myself and have not played it since. And that's not a lie. It's almost like being put into. It's almost like watching the film in virtual reality, the first one.
Yeah.
And so obviously, knowing that you've not played it, I've not played it, I will get around to playing it. But I just couldn't believe that the story takes place after, 3 years after the events of Alien, and you play as Ripley's daughter. And they took, and something to say the fact that it's first person, you don't get to see your character only in certain points. And they took the actress that played, they took a mixture of the actress that played Sigourney Weaver's daughter in Aliens.
Yeah.
They said, this is what they've said, I'm not sure the intricate details, and they took actually Sigourney Weaver's daughter and merged the two.
Really?
There's that level. And there's also DLC where each character has been created from the captain, Tom Skerritt, all the way through. And the graphics are beautiful, what they've done to each crew member. There's like a little DLC and you have to escape, do the last mission from Alien.
Yeah.
So it's stuff I'm going to try and play because it's like £5 now, which I think is a bargain for it. But I think just again that this conversation is to just show how rich from like such a standalone, like you said, a few sets. Like we don't know much about the universe, but it's still today's created a franchise, and still today it's created probably the scariest horror game that's currently out. To this, one of the scariest space films that's ever out, to a host of copycats. Its influence just doesn't wane.
No, definitely not.
So I'd just say watch it or play the game. So
yeah,
awesome. That's how I'd say. So I would give it, again, we've got probably in our short time we've gone through quite a few classic films. So I would give it 5 alien mouth penises out of 5.
I'd agree with you. Yeah, definitely.
It's classic. It's I'd Yeah, I can't really. Oh, I would like to say, I obviously not wanting to speak too much about personal life and stuff, but I would say that I worked for an housing organisation for a charity from 2013 to 2018, and I had to go to out in the community to see some younger people and help them sort out the rent and stuff. And every time I went to this one guy's house, every 2 weeks he watched Alien. It got to a point where it was amazing because it was only like 19, 20. And I said to him, "You watch this film nearly every time I come round." And he was like, "It's just beautiful to look at." And I'm glad I remember to tell you that because it just gives me hope for future generations that it doesn't matter when a film's made, like, oh, it's before my time or I wasn't born. It was just without, honestly, I was like, "Is this your favourite film?" And he was like, "Well, yeah, I've been watching it like, I've just got the collection. I've been watching it like every week for the past year because I can just sit and enjoy it and get lost." And I was like, "That's incredible."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
I've never told you that, but I wanted to
yeah,
because I know obviously how much you care about the film and stuff. So
yeah.
there is hope. There is hope for them. So, have you got a teaser for next episode?
Yeah, well, um, before King Arthur, before Chainsaw for a Hand,
Yeah.
before a laughing deer's head, there was a little tiny cabin in the woods. And a couple of friends went to a little cabin in the woods, and some serious shit went down. That involves some plasticine.
Yeah. Honestly, don't miss Starsky and Hutch. So, thanks for watching again, as always,
Yes.
and thank you very much for taking part and reliving Alien with me. If you guys could like the video or subscribe, like if you've enjoyed it, because it does help obviously with YouTube's algorithms. It does push it up to other people that might be interested in watching Alien but don't know we're out there, so we'd really appreciate that. Subscribe if you like what we're doing. Don't forget you can make suggestions to us, like if you like the video or comment on the video. We will respond, and we will, if you ask for a certain film or anything
Completely
to be watched.
disregard anything you've said.
Yeah. But yeah, as always, follow our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, where we post news. We often follow some, like at the minute we're following some of the like gaming events, aren't we? Because obviously the two new consoles are going to get launched this winter, this holiday season, or whatever. So we do like to mix in all content, and obviously, like we will have some different kind of videos coming soon and stuff. But obviously, the podcast, what we like doing, we love movies. We love to talk about movies. We love movies, and we love to talk about movies, and we love to talk about movies more than we do anything else. So,
of course, we love each other.
We do. It's a nicer love story than Titanic. The fact that not one of us had. I don't know. Be selfless enough to drown and leave the other one alone. So thanks for watching, guys. And so as you've probably guessed what we're doing next week, but you'll still have to see the little title card afterwards. So it's just left me to say thank you very much, mate, and see you next time.
Yeah, see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.